Welcome back everyone, it's Mags, and it's no secret that Nipponichi Software has a plethora of talented people who have worked to bring so many experimental and creative projects to life. And in 2019, an artist named Sayaka Oda got to make a work of her very own. A work that boasts an incredibly unique art style, and an overall presentation that feels like it was ripped straight out of a storybook fairy tale. Even the title is whimsical, The Liar Princess and the Blind Prince, released for the PS4 in 2019. In terms of gameplay, it might bring to mind two previous works that were also developed and published by NIS that I have also covered, that being Hataru no Nikki or The Firefly Diary and A Rose in the Twilight. That's because all three of these follow a similar pattern of gameplay, that being 2D puzzle games involving working together and escorting someone along. The two previous games were mainly headed by one Masayuki Furuya, who is also credited as one of the writers for Liar Princess. This title, however, is tonally much different from the previous two, which were very unsettling and bordered on horror. The Liar Princess, by complete contrast, is something that could easily be read as a bedtime story, and in fact, that's basically what the narrator is doing throughout the game. 王子に教えてもらった通りに火をつけようとする姫ですが And it's not the only one. This, too, ended up being the first in a duology, soon to be a trilogy in Japan. Please come over, please come over. While the prior two puzzle escort games were light on story, relying on the environment and your own imagination to fill in the gaps, Liar Princess is nearly the complete opposite. Story is the #1 main focus. Cutscenes are plentiful, and as always, accompanied by the cutest artwork you will ever see in your life. Instead of just watching what's happening, it's being read out to you like a story. And like every good fairy tale, the moral of the story is loud and clear. Each beautiful piece of artwork is a page, and every single page serves the express purpose of teaching this moral. The story opens with the titular unnamed princess, who's actually not a princess, but a wolf. Lie number 1. Humans and beasts live apart, with the former commonly being food for the latter. However, one human loved to listen to her sing from the cliff top every night, totally unaware of her beastly nature, just content to listen from a distance and give his applause from down below. This is the also unnamed prince, who sat every night and listened to her music, which became a form of comfort to the wolf. However, one night, the prince really wanted to see who was singing such a lovely song, so, unbeknownst to her, he climbed the cliff. The wolf only saw him when he reached the top, and, desperate not to let him see her for fear he would be afraid, instinctively lashed out. And thus, the blind prince. Now shunned by his own people and locked away so no one has to see his marred face. Feeling terrible, the princess pleads with the witch of the forest to turn her into a human so she can rescue the prince, and even gives up her singing voice to do it. Her plan is to take the prince in hand and lead him all the way back to the witch so she can heal his eyes. And so the princess rescues the prince from his own kingdom and does just that. But she also makes the conscious decision to keep him ignorant of her true form, not to even mention that she's the one who blinded him. Except now the Liar Princess is severely limited by her new human form and the fact that she has to escort the blind prince, which is where the puzzle elements come in. The princess can switch between her human form and her beast form at any time, notably taking advantage of the prince's blindness every step of the way by secretly slaughtering the monsters in their path. The main challenge, though, is actually escorting the prince. Since he can't see, the princess has to lead him along hand in hand, trying to figure out ways to manipulate the terrain around you to make that possible. The princess can jump higher in her beast form, but will be too big to fit in smaller pathways. Sometimes you have to lure out enemies into a more open space so you can kill them. You'll have to pull levers, push switches, ride platforms, pretty basic stuff overall. Over time, as the prince trusts you more, you get some new things you can do with him, like being able to command the prince from a distance to walk in a specific direction. This allows you to cross things like bridges that can only hold the weight of one person at a time. You're met with new obstacles and themes in every area, but it doesn't feel as focused as the other puzzle games before it did. It seems more like they were just throwing things at the wall in all honesty. Bouncy mushrooms, these creatures that launch you, teleportation mazes for some reason, because those are everyone's favorite. The things that actually require you to use the central gameplay mechanics are generally very simple, like crossing those thin bridges one at a time, or having you both stand on pressure plates to activate something. You're never actually challenged very much, and so it unfortunately makes the game feel like nothing's really going on. The things I did generally struggle with the most were actually things that didn't feel intentional. For example, these ghosts that turn into platforms only when you're looking at them. Not only does triggering this feel super finicky, but there's a rather obvious problem with the very concept, because once you're on top of the platform, it's kind of unreasonable to maintain that lest it immediately disappears, especially if you're trying to use multiple in a row. Whether that was actually supposed to be part of the challenge or not, I don't know, but it sure was annoying. And despite the misgivings I already have about the gameplay, they had to throw in the obligatory riddles segment in here too. You know, less of gameplay puzzles and more solve my riddles 3 puzzles. Hey look, this one requires you to go all the way back through the stage and count the lanterns in the background. Or just, you know, brute force it. There were also a weird amount of technical issues I encountered as well. Nothing too crazy, but there were more than a few instances of characters just getting caught on a wall or... You okay there, buddy? I really wish I had more good things to say about the gameplay because I think the idea of it is super cool and very fitting. I mean, they use the core plot point of having to escort the prince as the central gameplay mechanic. It's just that it doesn't feel very fleshed out. But don't worry, because I'm basically gonna spend the entire rest of the video glazing this game to hell and back, because the real substance lies in basically every single other aspect. I absolutely love almost everything else about this game. It is so incredibly charming. I mean, just looking at the screen at all times is a treat. The beautifully hand-drawn characters, monsters, stages, and cutscenes are amazing. I do internally squeal when I see cute drawings, and this game had me doing that all of the time. Ultimately, it all serves the purpose of making the entire world feel like a fairy tale, and it massively succeeds in that regard. The whimsical story setting and plot elements like a talking wolf, themes of royalty, and a forest witch who can grant wishes, all being narrated to you with a soft voice makes for such a cozy experience. The innocence of both the characters shine through as they just try to navigate both the forest and their feelings as best they can, and they often get sidetracked by trying to help the various monsters and creatures they find. There are cutscenes every few stages that tell you a little more about what's happening and how they're feeling. There are little details that show that care was put in, like the fact that the princess and the prince only smile when they're holding hands. That is so precious. But that's also the kind of thing that makes the story so effective. It hurts because the more attached she gets to the prince and the more the prince trusts her, the guiltier she feels for her deception. The happier things are, the bigger the shadow of dread is lurking beneath. Every gift the princess gives, every gameplay ability she unlocks that shows their trust growing, it only increases the doubt in her heart where there should have been joy. You feel it all of the time. That big moral of the story I mentioned, as you can probably guess by now, it's one that actively cautions against dishonesty. Not just to others, but also to yourself. It's a tale that tells of the heartache and the loneliness that comes with not living life true to who you are. The Liar Princess and the Blind Prince tells you to be you, and that you will be loved for it. This is a message that is beautifully conveyed, most strongly by its ending, which admittedly left me in tears. It's a message that I cannot possibly understate how much I personally appreciate, given a lot of the things I tend to struggle with in life. It's important and it's earnest. The game may be reminiscent of a fairy tale, but it does not shy away from showing the darker, dirtier parts of the themes it explores, which definitely makes it stand out more. Just to really drive home the bittersweet nature of the story, the prince mentions to the princess how much he loves flowers, and so one of the special collectibles you can find in stages are flowers you can pick to give to the prince. He looks so happy to receive them. They also unlock special journal entries you can read that altogether tell the backstory of the Witch of the Forest, so there's story incentive as well, which is neat. Also, these entries are interestingly titled A Witch's Tale, notably the same name as a game NIS has released previously for the DS. Whether there's actually a connection there, I don't know, as I haven't played A Witch's Tale, but at the very least, it's a cool reference. There's one other type of collectible you can find, which are 5 flower petals in each stage that unlock concept art of the game, which I will never complain about getting to see. The soundtrack of this game is incredible. I don't think there's a single track I don't absolutely love. Every stage theme, every cutscene track, the final boss music, all of it is so catchy and so pleasant to listen to. Actually, my biggest complaint is that the loops are too short sometimes. Speaking of short, the game itself is also very short. Each stage is only a few minutes when you know what you're doing, and you can see how many there are in the menu right off the bat. And as you can see, it's not that many. A first playthrough takes maybe 6-ish hours, so it's definitely not much of a commitment. Likewise, the achievements are super easy. You only have to go out of your way for a few, which include getting all the collectibles and having you complete specific stages in under certain amounts of time or under certain conditions, like without killing enemies. They're all pretty simple. The Liar Princess and the Blind Prince just feels like they had a great narrative idea and then just had to build a game around it. And as such, the game part of it really feels like it falls flat in comparison. But it absolutely didn't have to. I think the gameplay perfectly suits the narrative with having to escort the prince. They just didn't do too much with it, especially compared to the likes of the Firefly Diary and A Rose in the Twilight, which were fantastic puzzle games, and that's really unfortunate. But what I can say is that this game is beautiful in its aesthetics, its music, and especially its narrative. For that, I absolutely adore it. I've been Mags, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.